we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glasser coming back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there. This is all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could like, share, subscribe. Subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest Pop Culture Cosmos. Plus, also as well, go ahead and check out what we do on Facebook. If you like it today, you'll get the latest notifications, the news and notes in the world of pop culture right there for you. Plus, also popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. I recently popped a review in written form on AEW's Fight Forever. Go ahead and check out what my thoughts are on that video game. Plus, also a recap of everything that we do right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. You can go ahead and check it out today at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. Plus, our good friends at Vampires and Vitae. Check out the latest episodes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Also, Wild Beyond the Witchlight with Wizards and Wine. And if you can support all of that, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without the magistrate of all that is tabletop RPG action at Pop Culture Cosmos. She is a true force indeed. You got to go ahead and check out what she's doing today at Vampires and Vitae and how she creates havoc each and every time for her husband, Robbie Ross, there along with the gang. And then, of course, the havoc that she gets while running Wild Beyond the Witchlight at Wizards and Wine. It is my good friend. See, she's nodding her head in agreement on both those accounts.
Yeah.
It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. And Melinda, great to have you back talking pop culture once again.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. Big shout out to all our radio stations around the world that continue to cover us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. We are indebted to you, and hopefully your audience appreciates you going ahead and playing us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos indeed. But it is the PCC Multiverse for this weekend. Looking forward to some great conversations, some news and notes on some reviews, advanced reviews for a couple of big movies. The last real two big movies of the summer. Sorry, DC's Blue Beetle, because we don't know exactly what the status of that is yet. But these are the two last big releases coming up next week. We'll talk about the advanced reviews for both. Plus also as well, Pikmin 4. A return to Pikmin over a decade in. Since the last Pikmin, we'll go ahead and see if it struck gold once again for Nintendo and why this series needs to find more love. We'll talk about that coming up. Plus also a great deal to talk about that concerns Comic-Con. That's coming up in a few minutes as well. But my friend, the nastiness has gotten even worse with the SAG strike as far as the conversations back and forth. No new news or update on it. They are still like in the early stages. So you and I know how this goes already, where there's the bitter talk and rah, 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 before there's that long period of, going back and forth and kind of like a lull going on. Then finally, after both sides get a little bit desperate or a little bit nervous, they finally come together. And, after weeks of negotiation, they finally will have a kumbaya moment and go ahead and love each other once again after coming to an agreement. That usually seems the way it is. Will it be different this time? We'll see. But it is interesting to note that Netflix, that dropped its password sharing, has gained almost gained over 5 million, almost 6 million subscribers. The revenue is at an all-time high. It seems like they're really going with what they're doing as far as creating that mystique and still the stories of their paychecks, that the residuals that they send out to individuals that are appearing on their shows and movies seem to get smaller and smaller. So it is interesting to see the dynamics of what's going on, the way that the studios are portraying the actors and the way the actors are portraying the studios as far as that's concerned. So again, I just feel sad that, again, for the consumers at large, that we're going to get less of a product that's out there. Your thoughts so far as we see week one in full of the Screen Actors Guild after strike.
Yeah, I saw a lot of exactly what I figured I would see. I saw a lot of people talking about, millionaires fighting with billionaires over tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I mean, I just don't want the smaller scale actors to get lost in all of this. Not,
And that's
there's
what
only
seems to be the case. That seems to
yeah,
always be the case.
yeah, it really is just like the top like 1% of actors who start to make millions of dollars at the box office. You have to become an Arnold Schwarzenegger or a Jennifer Lawrence or a Julia Roberts or a George Clooney. But when you're just trying to break in to acting, you're going to take a lot of really low paying jobs, and those low paying jobs should at least be able to pay your rent or put a little bit of food on your table. And a lot of the conversations over residuals and stuff like that, I'm hearing people kind of take the side on the studios. But if you have a show like Jerry Seinfeld, for example, with Seinfeld, and it's going to go to streaming, and Jerry Seinfeld receives a check for 3 cents, just for example, that's not okay. That is still his work, that is still his likeness. And yeah, I just think that people should really take a step back from that stance of it's millionaires fighting with billionaires, because that's not the majority of what's happening. It's conversations about people who are extras and getting scanned and being used forever in perpetuity, their image and their likeness as background actors. And enough of them, from what I've heard, have actually signed it and agreed to it, that they may be able to just go ahead and not need background actors anymore. That's a thing that's already kind of a threat, and that's one of the things that I've seen some of the smaller actors and stuff talking about. So it's a really complex issue. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out, and it just seems like the studios aren't really interested at this point in a conversation in good faith. It seems like it's still very confrontational. And once they get to the good faith bargaining, then I think that we'll start to see a little bit of movement.
I will tell you though that with what we're seeing with the SAG-AFTRA strike and of course the Writers Guild strike along with it, I mean, we haven't seen anything like this. We reported on it since 1960 when both of these industry leaders, as far as unions are concerned, both went on strike together. And it seems like at some point in time that there has to be some type of giveaway or some type of leniency as far as someone giving in to the demands of the other side. And I don't know which one at this point is going to be pushing back. I don't know which one is going to be folding their cards. I don't know which one is going to be actually taking in what they're dishing out. I don't know which one is going to be able to do that at this point in time. I just the tendency is to think that the individual, the smaller actors, the less successful actors, the actors that are supposed to be the reason why you're doing this for the most part, anyways,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are going to be hurt the most. They're the ones that are going to be affected the most. They're going to be the ones that could be affected first by this.
Mhm.
They're the ones going to have the hardest time holding out on this strike. So they're the ones I'm worried about the most.
I'm worried about the studio executives that Ron Perlman is after. Did you see that? You must have seen
I
that.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
Wow. That guy is mad. He's like big mad though. He's real
Absolutely.
upset about it. And I don't blame him. But it's really complex because now that AI is here, I don't see AI going anywhere.
Mm.
And as somebody who likes to pretend that I dabble in voice acting, I don't. I voice over. It's very different. But as somebody who dabbles a little bit in that world, AI is going to start taking jobs. Why pay somebody, $50 to voice, a 30-second commercial, which is ridiculously low, by the way, when you can just plug it into AI and AI just delivers. And it's only going to continue to get better. And it's only going to continue to become more and more of a threat. And I think that we have to find a way to um, I don't I don't want to say embrace AI, but we need to find a way to be friendly with it. And I just it's not going anywhere, and we have to contend with that, and we have to find a way to work with it and work around it, I think.
And on that note, when you talk about what's going on with this strike and also AI is a very good issue to talk about because the fact that when it comes to AI, it's a surrounding theme of the latest hit movie that's out there, a movie that hopefully will gain back its budget and then some in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. It is a central theme to the movie, but it's also something that Tom Cruise reportedly behind the scenes has been trying to work his way around the strike to go ahead and promote the strike, but also talk to these studios about the issue of AI and try to go ahead and work both sides, whether it's favorably or unfavorably against one or the other. The one thing though that I get out of it is that recently Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, he was on the front lines talking about how disturbed he was about, and paraphrasing here, about how Tom Cruise was trying to seek a waiver so that he could promote Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. I am of I understand that there's now a blanket you cannot promote
Yeah.
anything right now on your social media and all that, but I do know that they're giving some waivers for some films to be continue filming at this point in time. Just like giving about 3 or 4 so far already, and I'm sure they plan to do more.
Mhm.
I do think it is important though to continue to promote the product, to even use as a platform while you're promoting the product for the SAG-AFTRA causes. I think it's a mistake for them not to go ahead and have a type of YouTube show, podcast, or using those platforms when you're at doing the celebrity car wash, as they all do, going to the
Yeah.
various outlets and whatnot to go ahead and promote their film, to also promote the causes for SAG-AFTRA and why they're important for this industry.
Yeah, that would actually be a really interesting tactic and a wonderful way for the unions to get their message out and to get it out unfiltered. Because as you can imagine, a lot of the actors are looking at some of the news stations and stuff like that that are owned by the same companies that they're on strike from, and they're painting the actors in a very poor light and saying that this is frivolous and all that kind of stuff, and that's what's getting reported on, and that's truly not really the case. And I think that if they did do a YouTube channel or even a TikTok and just did 3-minute segments at a time and threw out a couple of those a day while you're on the picket line, and help to get those messages out with some of those familiar faces and some of those familiar names that we don't know the faces of. I think that you're right. I think that would be hugely impactful. And yeah, definitely something that they should consider a specific waiver for.
I mean, because that's something right now. I mean, you could have a podcast or a YouTube channel you could do from the front lines, and you could all interview various actors and their
Yeah.
experiences in dealing with these type of subjects to gain even more sympathy. Because what we see in these rare, not rare, but these infrequent news interviews that they've done over the course of the past week, they all talk about how they were robbed or they were given so very little on their residuals. Like Mandy Moore, for instance, for This Is Us, on some residuals that she got was reportedly under $1, and other instances like that. You could continually be out in front of this
Yeah.
with social media and have that out there by having your own show, by having your own podcast, by having your own YouTube channel, but also by pushing, especially with Barbie and Oppenheimer, which is one of the most critical weeks of the year for the movies industry, for actors, actresses, and the movies next week with those two outlets, because
Yeah.
Barbie is trending towards $100 million opening domestically. Oppenheimer $50 million opening, and we'll talk about the reviews for those that here in a little bit. But I think that you should give special waivers for those individuals. And I know Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul was really against it and actually said Tom Cruise better not show up here or he's going to get beaten up. I
Oh,
thought that was also this paraphrasing again. I thought that was very discouraging. I think they should be more in alignment with each other, and even if they disagree, respectfully disagree with each other, I still think you should use those car wash moments when you're talking to these other outlets, the being on the Today Show, being on ET, whatever, and you should be able to go ahead and promote your product, but also promote what the SAG-AFTRA strike is all about too, as well.
Yeah, unfortunately though, you're not really in control of the message when you sit down to do those because of the junket and like as you said, the car wash where people come,
Oh, you can make it
reporters
your
kind of revolve.
all it takes is let's say you're the star, I'm your publicist. I'm telling you exactly what I'm going to have my client say, and you can ask the questions based on that. They
Yeah,
all
but
co-
I still feel like you could with some clever and strategic editing of those segments, which we know does happen and does occur. I think that they could easily work around, you know, a message that they didn't feel like having on the
Well,
news.
that's why you only accept the live shows like today, or you go on the late night talk
Sure.
shows, which definitely want to bring that up. Yeah, well, then again, I'm sorry, they're all shut down because the Writers Guild strikes. So never mind. But you
Yeah.
know, I'm saying if you go on live shows, you can edit that out. You can pick and choose what you want to do, or you can go on social media platforms, really large social media accounts, and push what SAG-AFTRA wants to really say.
Yeah, but if you're going to do that, then you have to remember too that, you know, a segment that was particularly heated will be picked up by other stations and whatever, and there will be editing that will occur. So your live stuff is good for that live hit, but your message can get convoluted and you're not convoluted, sorry, your message can get skewed easily after you've done the live hit. So even that I think is a little bit weird. I think that doing the social media stuff and really hammering home those ideas, doing YouTube shorts, being on TikTok, doing Instagram stories, all of that kind of stuff, I think it would be hugely impactful. And I think that that's something that they should really start to consider.
So, what are your thoughts out there on how you would proceed with the SAG after strike if you're on the end of the SAG after folks who are fighting hard to go ahead and get better wages, better opportunities, and obviously prevent the future of AI from controlling their likenesses going forward? So, we want to hear your thoughts. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, so much more to go before the half hour break. I want to ask you this: Pikmin, they're so cute, they're so tiny, they're so lovable. Absolutely fantastic. But guess what? Pikmin 4, the first Pikmin game in over a decade, now is available on the Nintendo platform and it's getting rave reviews. Shocker upon all shockers, another Nintendo based game getting some grand reviews. Your thoughts on Pikmin 4, your thoughts on the Pikmin series? It's something that, again, caters to a niche, which is reason why it's not exactly the highest on the
Mhm.
priority totem pole for Nintendo. But what you see there as far as quality, the development of the game, the additions from previous editions that they've made some add-ons and some modern gameplay choices that have really resonated with gamers so far.
Yeah, and I think that you know, we have the big releases like we've seen this year, and I think that these I'm going to use the term low key, and I don't know that I mean it exactly the way that low key is usually used, but you know, those kind of niche games, they're going to hit a very specific target demographic, and they're going to embrace it, and they're going to love it, and they're going to play the bejesus out of it. So I do think that there's always going to be a place for games like that, and I'm glad to see that Nintendo is definitely not giving up on some of those you know, more targeted, very niche games.
Well, I will tell you what, my friend, it is really looking good. I'm hoping people will give it a chance.
Hmm.
It's available now, so go ahead and check it out. It is Pikmin 4 now available for the Nintendo Switch. It tells me though, when they're creating games such as this, and obviously what they have plans for down the road, I understand that they're going to create a new souped up Switch or a Switch Pro or something like that down the line in the not too distant future, because it has already seen the heights of the sales of the Nintendo Switch are already starting to go ahead and descend a little bit. But you know, it's sold well over 100 units, 100 million units, excuse me, sold over 100 million units. It's really done well. It's one of the greatest selling console platforms of all time. I still think it has a lot of life left. And with the latest Zelda and now Pikmin 4 and other stuff that are coming on the way, I really think that there's still plenty of life left in the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, at least until PlayStation comes out with their handheld
Mhm.
direct competitor. of the Nintendo
Well,
Switch.
but that's not exactly a handheld.
Eh, uh,
It's not
eh.
exactly it's like a remote play. That's all it is. It's just a
Yeah,
remote play of what you're playing on PS5. It's not its own console. It's just like what the Vita. The Vita was awesome as far as what it could do. It was giving its own original games, plus it could go ahead and remote play off the PS4. And why they decided to nix that and be able to not deal with that anymore was beyond me. I love that Vita. Unfortunately, it just did not get the love and support from PlayStation that it deserved. I don't think the PS5 handheld is going to do anywhere near what they would want it to do, simply because of the fact that it's not its own entity, that it is just a remote play. It will sell for those that are interested in. But then again, it reminds me of so many other PlayStation apparatus that
yeah.
you know of
Hmm.
that has been introduced
Yep.
and floundered and failed. Years like, I mean, it could fill up this room behind me of all the PlayStation accessories that have been introduced and failed by Sony.
Yeah, it's almost like they launch some of this stuff and then they just don't have enough games that are compatible with it to make it like a long lasting um piece of gear that you add to your console.
Like the PlayStation Monitor, or the other PlayStation branded things, and that they've actually introduced. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just they just introduce it, they throw it out there. They at least found a use for the PlayStation Move controllers after they abandoned that technology, and then they brought it back with the original PSVR. But now with the PSVR 2, they have no more use for the original Move controllers, so they're on the way out as well. So yeah, exactly. One thing you and I go back and forth on is PlayStation, Xbox. I'm not even going to talk with you on the show about the new Xbox Games Pass core rates, because I still am trying to study it like a class, and I'm trying to figure out. So I'm probably go on with Josh about that, because that's confusing as heck. So that would actually extend our argument with Xbox and PlayStation even more. And
Right.
because I always get on your case about the PlayStation charges and all the stuff as far as the tiers and all that. Well,
Yeah.
Xbox made it just harder for themselves on that end as well, and I'll definitely talk about that on Monday. But with what we're seeing though with PlayStation and Nintendo, there's still a lot of life left in this console age. We are reaching a midway point for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, and also a kind of a near ending, not quite ending, but near on the way out as far as the Nintendo Switch is concerned. I see maybe what 2 or 3 years left before they go ahead, maybe even next year, that they'll introduce a new console. So there is still life left for Nintendo Switch, and also games like Pikmin 4, which are doing extremely well right now on Nintendo.
Right. Yeah, I think that yeah, Nintendo hit it and hit it hard with the Nintendo Switch. And if we are going to hold out for a Pro, then maybe I will hold off getting my very own Nintendo Switch until the Pro comes out.
Yeah, I'd say maybe next fall,
Yeah.
next holiday at the earliest, but it would maybe the year after that, but maybe next year. Next year is probably a target time for them to go ahead and do. So that would actually be still good, because then the Nintendo Switch itself would still be somewhat relevant, and actually might get cheaper and still
Exactly.
even
Yeah.
sell more units for them to finally
Yeah.
finish off the sales on that one. So we'll see what happens, but Pikmin 4 is getting some great reviews. It's right now an 88 on Metacritic. So congratulations to the team
Wow.
behind
Yeah.
Pikmin 4, getting some great reviews. If that's your style of game, go ahead and check it out. It is Pikmin 4. What are your thoughts? If you've played it already or plan to do so, please let us know. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. But before we head to the break, my friend, I wanted to pop on something for you that you didn't have in your bylines for this week, but I wanted to go ahead and hit you up on it, because we talked about it last week. That we said we were going to talk about it this week, and that's FX's What We Are Going to Do in the Shadows.
Oh, what we do in the
So,
shadows. Yes.
yes, What We Do in the Shadows, season
Hmm.
5, getting rave reviews, 85 on Metacritic. Speaking of another mid to high 80s score for Metacritic, I usually base it off that than Rotten Tomatoes, because Rotten Tomatoes, I think, is just not a perfect or even a good solution, because it's very vague in how they go ahead and rate a positive review. Again, I'm looking at 85 for Metacritic for What We Do in the Shadows. Your thoughts on this as a vampire lover? And I mean, lover of all things vampires.
Yeah.
Get your mind out of the gutter there, everyone.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, though, on vampires and Vitae, as far as from that end of it, as far as how you try to emulate some of the things that you do with what we do in the shadows.
Well, I don't think that any podcast or actual play that is in existence right now intends to set out to emulate what we do in the shadows. But it happens more often than not where it does fall into that kind of dark humor, that kind of seemingly frivolous storylines every once in a while. That does tend to pop up a little bit. But I mean, you experience the same in D&D. You intend to have a really great straightforward, heavy RP, heavy combat campaign, and before you know it, you're talking about I don't know, riding cows, for example, like we did in Vampires and Vitae. So all of these games do seem to share that kind of who knows what's going to happen level of unpredictability. But if you are in an actual play podcast or you're listening to one and it does start to hit some of the same notes as what we do in the shadows, that's not a bad thing because it's a great show. And whether or not the people who are taking part in the podcast or the live stream, whether or not they're fans of the show, it doesn't seem to matter a whole lot. It just seems to be there's a very common thread that goes through that type of humor that what we do in the shadows and a lot of these games now seem to share. Unintentionally for season 1, for example, my character Anna, there could be arguments out there that I was watching what we do in the shadows and I was trying to emulate Nadia from the show. Definitely not the case. At that point, I hadn't watched any of what we do in the shadows. But Anna has some of the same kind of personality quirks that Nadia had. And it was completely accidental because I hadn't been watching the show at that point. But now that I do watch the show, it's kind of helping me get some of that silliness out of my system when I sit down to play the game. So I'm not saying that my game is serious by any means, but it is kind of helping me correct course when I do go off on tangents. Bless Robbie's heart.
Bless Robbie's heart, indeed. He
Yeah.
deals with you.
He does.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. But what are your thoughts out there on what we do in the shadows season 5? Let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But we got a couple of minutes left before we hit the break. And I thought I'd let you vent on just before season 1 hits for Diablo 4, your ultimate game of games that you've been talking about oh so long, and you've been playing it for so long now, and you're in the 20s, I believe, as far as levels are concerned, if I remember correctly. There's a little bit of controversy because things can't go ultimately all well for a video game seemingly during its life cycle. And
especially a Blizzard game for some reason.
Yeah, so there's a recent patch that was instituted by Blizzard onto gamers, and it nerfed some things in there that, as far as really made the community upset, to the point where it plans to use the scroll of escape to address hardcore player disconnect deaths, errors like that, but also as well some powers taken away from some of the characters. Your thoughts on this before season 1 hits? If they don't address these issues with Blizzard and Diablo 4, if they don't address these issues with Diablo 4, what is that going to do when season 1 hits very soon?
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand wanting to keep the game challenging. And, sometimes it takes being released to the public for the public and particularly gamers to find their way to min-max your character in a way that you maybe hadn't anticipated during development of the game. Unfortunately, that shouldn't be something that is taken away from those players. That should be something that's kind of celebrated with the players. Like you figured out something that we didn't see. And there's something about Diablo and the enjoyment of just being able to like blast through a dungeon and just kill everything and hit the boss and, have to take 3 or 4 tries to get through the boss. But I really That's what I love about Diablo. I love that I can set up my character, I can swap out equipment, I can go into a dungeon, I can run through it, I can kill a whole bunch of stuff. And I enjoy that part of the game a lot. I love being in the middle of a big horde of monsters and just level them all. It's my favorite thing. So when you're going to start to take that away from gamers who have figured out a combination that maybe wasn't, intended to work the way that it actually does when the game is being played, to me that's a little silly. It feels petty, it feels small, and I don't agree with it. I also, don't agree with if I was sitting at a table and I had a character and a DM took something away from my character and it completely nerfed my build. I would be upset about that as well. So I don't think it's necessarily specific to Diablo 4 where it's the only place that it happens. But right now, as it stands, with the reception that they've had with Diablo 4, why would you want to taint that? Why start taking things away from gamers? You should be opening the gates a little bit more, making that a little bit wider. If anything, up the monsters if you think that people are going through stuff too easily. Up the challenge rating of that stuff. Add more of them. I don't know exactly what the answer is because I'm not privy to the math that they use to figure out the encounter difficulties and stuff. But yeah, I don't like it when things like that are taken away from people who have figured out the secret sauce.
Excellent points indeed. So, what are your thoughts out there on the latest issues going on with Diablo 4? Are you mad like Melinda and are ready to protest outside of Blizzard right now? Who have just gotten off their own issues with a hopefully pending sale from Activision Blizzard by Microsoft, but that's another story altogether. Check out last week's episode. Please let us know your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, 1/2 hour down, 1/2 hour to go here on the PCC Multiverse. The Verse. Oh my gosh, I got to go ahead and shorten it up to the Verse. The Verse looking good here on the Verse. I will tell you though that Barbie and Oppenheimer, again, as I pointed out earlier in the show, is going to be one of the biggest weekends of the year. We talked
Yeah.
about last weekend with Tom Cruise being one of the biggest weekends of the year, and it underwhelmed, which was very concerning if you're a theater owner. I understand that they're 15% more up than they are last year, but when you have so many high budget mediocre or disappointing returns, that's got to be of concern to the movie industry and the box office industry as a whole. Right now, supposedly Barbie is trending just below the pre-sales for Avatar, The Way of Water, which is obviously a very good sign. And then Oppenheimer is also trending very well as well. And the critical advance word for both is tremendous. Oppenheimer right now on Metacritic has got a 90 and Barbie has an 81. So both are getting eights, nines, and a lot of cases for Oppenheimer, tens. And Oppenheimer will probably be considered at the very top of the list of best movies of the year, and Barbie won't be too far behind. And it is rare that we get a weekend where two AAA movies are put out in the same weekend and both are being beloved by critics.
I have a feeling that when we start to see the box office results from these two movies, we may see just like a flip flop back and forth over a few weekends where Barbie's on top and then Oppenheimer's on top and then Barbie's on top and then Oppenheimer's on top.
I
I think
think
it's
when kids go back to school, you're going to
Mhm.
see Oppenheimer grow and consistently like word about, like for instance with Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible's got a tremendously good word of mouth, so you should see it continue to go ahead and have good
Right.
returns is what we're thinking is going to happen there. I think the same for Oppenheimer. Plus, if it rates really high, as it is already, I have a feeling they'll do a re-release either near the end of this year or right around Oscar time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that makes sense, stretch that dollar and get as much as you can.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do. I just think that those two movies are going to flip flop here for the next couple of weekends. It's going to go back and forth. People will go one weekend and see Barbie, and then they'll go the next weekend and see Oppenheimer, or
Or you
vice
could do
versa.
what over 30 to 50,000 people have already bought tickets for, the meme heard around the world
Mm,
in Barbenheimer.
yeah. That sounds like a pretty fun idea, really. I mean, go to a matinee and then go to dinner and then go back and watch another movie. It's my kind of day. I like that kind of day.
All right. Well, are you going to get your husband on the phone then?
I mean, maybe.
Okay. All right.
I might go do
Well,
it all by myself.
okay.
I know.
Oh,
I know. No,
wow.
I would never. I would never.
Somewhere Robbie Ross is driving right now. He just got side smacked.
Yeah.
And he's probably
No.
saying to himself, darn that, Melinda. What is
Right?
she
Yeah.
saying?
No, I would never, especially those two movies. Believe it or not, Robbie's actually quite curious about the Barbie movie, so it should be interesting.
I've already got two young ladies, two teenage ladies at home who are going to take me to the theater to go see it, whether I want to or not. And actually, I do want to because it is earning such high praise. But I do also want to catch Oppenheimer because it also is earning such high praise indeed. And Oppenheimer looks like it's one of the best reviewed films of the past decade,
Yeah.
possibly of this century, and people are calling it a masterful achievement. And Christopher Nolan, who has, he has a long line of notable films. He
Hmm.
has a long line of films that are very highly regarded, whether you talk about Interstellar, where you talk about The Dark Knight, where you talk about, even one of his last movies, Tenet, which I really liked, but I know a lot of people didn't get, or a lot of people didn't
Right.
want to sit through. I really like Tenet, but again, it was brought out at the wrong time when the world was going crazy, and he was insistent on it coming out, and he got what he wanted.
He sure
But
did.
and there's a lot of movies that he's created that have really done well with audiences, but this could very well be his best offering.
Yeah, and that's wild. I mean, if this is him at the top of his craft,
And
how
he
do you
talked
follow
about
up a
wanting to
movie
do a
like that?
Bond film this week as well.
Ooh, I would love to see a Christopher Nolan Bond movie. Are you kidding me? With Henry Cavill as James Bond?
There you go.
I'll sign
Absolutely.
up for that. I'll sign up for that.
But the thing I wanted to ask you is your thoughts on
Mhm.
this, because we talked about it before the break. We talked about the SAG-AFTRA strike and talked about representation, about having some of these actors get special allowances to go ahead and promote their movies. I think for Margot Robbie, it is extremely important for her to go ahead and be the front and be the face of this movie, and to be allowed to promote this film because of what this would do for her career. Because if this bombs, she will probably not be able to lead a movie again, or if she does, it would not be at the scale.
Yeah.
Movie companies would not want to spend $200 million on a Barbie movie or a AAA movie with her in the lead role, simply because they would have no faith, because Birds of Prey didn't resonate with audiences, and that's the last. I don't know if that's not the last film that she's fronted, but that, you get what I'm saying. That's the
Yeah.
last film that she was really at the forefront of. This is a movie probably is going to do very well. It has all the earmarkings that it's going to do well, but it would be so incredibly gracious of everyone involved to allow her to go ahead and promote this film. And also, especially for Oppenheimer, for Cillian Murphy, this is the first time he has ever gotten this opportunity at this type of level of production. Yes, had starred in Peaky Blinders. Yes, starred in what, 28 weeks, 28 days later?
Yeah, I think
28 weeks.
so.
Yeah, 28. Okay. He 28 days later, the first one he
Yeah.
started. Yeah. So he starred in movies like that, but then he became mostly a supporting actor for some of these big films. And of course, in Christopher Nolan films, he's played roles in supporting characters for this, for quite some time. This is his first big opportunity in a AAA budget film. I really think he should be given our opportunity to go ahead and put his face out there so people get to know him, because he's the lead right now in Oppenheimer, and still the average viewer, the average individual probably doesn't have a great knowledge of who he actually is.
That's true. That's true. And I mean, you're so for me it's a little bit complicated because we have Margot Robbie, who I agree should be out promoting this film. Mostly because I don't I don't know what the director of that movie looks like. But I
Greta
definitely
Gerwig, who,
yeah.
congratulations, she had a baby, I guess, recently as well.
Oh, wow.
So
Busy lady.
yes.
Yeah. But I definitely know who Christopher Nolan is. So with the Oppenheimer movie, I think it makes as much sense for Christopher Nolan to kind of take the reins and do some promotion during this strike.
Yeah,
And
but for
I think it
Cillian Murphy's career,
Oh yeah,
wouldn't
no,
you?
I completely agree with you, but I'm just thinking in terms of like what I would be thinking if I saw these requests come through, and I was sitting on the with the union, I would be like, well, okay, Margot Robbie, I think it makes sense. The director's not quite as familiar, although Barbie right now with the promos and stuff that have already been done, I think it's already a runaway freight train, and I think that people may be on the fence about Oppenheimer, despite all of the good stuff that we're hearing about it. I think that they could hear just as much from Christopher Nolan and be sold on the film as they could from the lead actor.
See, you only know him as the lead actor.
I
That's
know,
just
and that's
Cillian
that
Murphy. That's part of the problem. That's exactly
100%.
why.
Yeah,
That's
no, I could
exactly.
I absolutely agree with you. I do think that this is unfortunate timing, particularly for him. But I think that because of that weird situation, I think that yeah, it makes as much sense for Nolan to do it as it does for Murphy.
But I just the reason why he needs to be out in the forefront
Mhm.
is exactly what you just explained as
Yeah,
you called him the lead actor. And because
yeah,
you're not alone, millions of people are calling him the lead actor of Oppenheimer. They're not calling him Cillian Murphy,
yeah,
Killian Murphy, however you want to pronounce it. They're only calling him the lead actor of Oppenheimer. And
right.
by this time next year, when or in earlier, 2024, when the Oscars comes around, and he'll most likely be on that short list. And I think it's safe to say he'll be on the very short list of Best Actor nominations. Possibly a win for him right now because the way everybody is describing it is again the best reviewed movie of the year so far, to the best of my knowledge, at least at that scale
Yeah.
of presentation. I have a feeling that he's going to be at the forefront. So you'll probably know his name sometime next year as the winner, as the either a nomination or winning the lead actor category at the Oscars. But still, it just would help for him and his career going forward. But obviously, at this point in time, since he's not made any big public stink about it, he's probably being very gracious as to how he's handling it as far as the SAG-AFTRA strike is concerned. Even though, again, next week a publication of just putting his face out there would have been so much more helpful for him and the movie itself.
Yeah, my next thought about him though is that he never really seems comfortable when you're watching him in a press junket. He always seems like
No, you're
it's
right.
it's just not where he wants to be. It's not what he wants to be doing. He would much
But
rather
he
be
well, he's always said though he wanted to be and how wanted to have a leading role in such a grand production.
yeah.
He's got his opportunity,
Mhm.
and it looks like he's done a great job with it.
Yeah, I would say so. And the it could actually no, I don't think so. That's the whole point of our conversation. I was like, maybe it will, benefit him to be, a little less known. And then when the wave of, fandom starts to surround him, it would be more organically done. But that's exactly what we're talking about. And that doesn't make any sense. I'm just contradicting myself now. I think Nolan is the right choice for now to go ahead and promote the film. Should this strike, let's just pretend, end in like 2 days, then absolutely go absolutely wild. But I think that Nolan should be involved in all of those interviews. I think he should be side by side with them.
Oh, you will, and you already are getting a heavy dose of Nolan
Yeah.
right now promoting Oppenheimer
Yeah.
because he's consistently talked about how he is one of the most important human beings of all time,
Yeah.
at least of the last century. And he's talking about this is one of the greatest stories that needed to be told, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously I don't want to underwhelm it by any stretch of the imagination because I understand the contributions that Oppenheimer did make, whether you think positively or negatively on it. One cannot underestimate the importance of what Oppenheimer did for the world, either again on a positive or a negative basis, however you see it.
Yeah. I agree.
But the word right now is that the life that has been portrayed on screen by Christopher Nolan, the going back and forth between color and black and white, the transitions, the whole aesthetics, the look, really get the feel of what it was like in the 1940s at the closing weeks of the world, closing year, weeks and months of World War II. That's very interesting to me because that's something that's not alluded to very often as far as in historical dramas or World War II dramas, because we always see like the actioneers or whether this ragtag group of individuals, this
Yeah.
outfit that only they can save the this part of the world as far as and save us from World War II. We always see that as far as the heroics of that, but we don't see it, other parts of World War II, such as how it ended,
Hmm.
such as how life was during that point in time, and how, again, impactful the creation of the nuclear bomb was to our society and our culture at large.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only tell you the stories that, my grandfather, who served in World War II, told me about how he heard that the war had ended when he was on the front lines. So, I can only speak to that, but it's always going to be an interesting look at all of that. And you know, man, you just really hope that when movies like this come out, people look at it and remember that war is not and should not be what we're striving to go towards. And
Should never
sometimes
be the answer.
it should never be. And it only hurts the populations. It never hurts the people who decide that this is what we're going to do. And it's a horrible thing. And here's hoping that we don't have to live through that reality anytime soon.
I agree with you 100%. And as they always say, if you don't learn from your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And let's
Yeah.
hope that is definitely not the case. But Oppenheimer, based on the life of Oppenheimer himself, that has garnered tremendous reviews. Again, is one not only the best reviewed movie of the year, but it is possibly one of the best reviewed movies of the century in Oppenheimer. And also, not too far behind is Barbie. That's also getting strong reviews. And that has a great lead in as far as money built up in advanced pre tickets selling. It has earned us almost as much as Avatar: The Way of Water, and that's definitely some high praise indeed. So people are excited for those two movies. What are your thoughts on Barbenheimer?
Hmm.
Are you ready to go check out Barbie and Barbenheimer next week? Have you got your tickets already set for both movies, or are you deciding between one or the other? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, before we head on out, we've had a great conversation indeed, but I'm not as excited as I should be, Melinda. I should actually be in San Diego right now.
Oh my
If
gosh.
all went well
Yeah.
and the Comic Con, the SAG strike, everything got together, everybody would be at Comic Con, all the stars would be at Comic Con, the Comic Con uh, press registration that I asked for time and time again would have actually answered my requests on let me know exactly whether I was staying or going. They never
Uh-huh.
did, but I'm kind of glad I actually didn't go because the stars aren't going either because they're on strike. There's still some TV stuff that's going on. There's still some movie promotion that's going on there, despite no stars going. A lot of video game promotion has picked up the slack.
Hmm.
And definitely the collectibles are still there in loads. So if you're going there, please be safe. Please go ahead and buy the collectibles and then please sell them to us at a cheap bargain if you can. But my thoughts and my questions are is how do you think that Comic-Con will be impacted by the impending, the strikes that have already started? How do you think they'll impact Comic-Con this weekend?
Well, you know what? I mean it is. mm, it it's not going to affect attendance. I don't think that anybody who has bought a ticket for Comic-Con is just not going to go
Oh
because
no, they're expensive. So yeah,
right?
no,
Yeah,
no.
so they're definitely going to go because you're still going to have your cosplay people there. You still have your comic book people there. You still have all of
I'm
that stuff
posing
going
now.
on, right? and I think that, the added bonus of being able to go and see panels featuring, your favorite actors and actresses from your favorite series and all of that stuff. I think that's a wonderful bonus for Comic-Con, but you know, it shouldn't be the only reason you're going to Comic-Con. There that should be like a highlight. It shouldn't be what you do all day. Just stand in line and wait to get into, what is it? Do air room B or something. They have all of those huge conferences and stuff in. It maybe it will give an opportunity for some of these video games to attract larger audiences and be able to attend some of those bigger halls, and maybe it'll give comic book creators an opportunity to draw a bigger crowd than they normally would, because they would be up against a wildly a successful show, and that has people going by the hundreds to that room instead of coming over to the small little talk that you're doing by comparison. So hopefully it's going to give people an opportunity to take in stuff that they normally wouldn't have seen, because they would be in those huge halls with all of the actors and TV shows and movies.
And that's a good point, because everything that was pushed to the side
Yeah.
because of Marvel and DC and all the heavyweight movies that were intending to be there, or TV shows that were intending to be there,
Yeah.
will now get a bigger spotlight of it. And there's going to be a lot of presentations, some movies, advanced looks, TV shows, advanced look that you wouldn't normally get anywhere else, but you get to go ahead if you're down there and get to check it out. I'm really excited to go ahead and hear thoughts on that. Also, as well, the displays that are there. Lego has built a blockbuster video display
That's amazing.
on site, and if you get to see the pictures of it, it's truly fantastic. So that's there on site, and I would love to go ahead just to see that. I would have gone cool to see that. But also, as well, the collectors on the show floor go ahead and get the rare San Diego collectibles like Funko Pop. Funko Pop makes specific Funkos for that specific event, and you have to wait in line for hours just to go ahead and get a chance to buy it. The resale values on those are crazy, but yeah, just to see that, all that going on, just to be a part of that, for the cosplay, the whole 9 yards. I think a lot of people are still going to have a lot of fun this weekend at Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know, because the Comic Cons that I've attended, I mean, the biggest panel I've ever taken in was the full cast minus Will Wheaton of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I got to see like Tasha Yar and all that stuff all interact on stage. But really, the parts of the convention that I really enjoyed, and this was up in Montreal, was walking around on the floor and being able to buy some of those really cool things that you wouldn't necessarily have come across in any other way. That to me is really the fun part of Comic-Con, and finding that geek family of yours. If you're dressed up like a character from Doctor Who and you go and you take a picture with 300 other Doctor Who fans, that's really to me the magic of Comic-Con. It's not sitting in the big halls watching trailers for movies that aren't coming out for another 3 years.
Well, I'll tell you what, my friend, it's very exciting to see what will happen this weekend. Josh and I will cover the aftermath on the Monday show, the Pop Culture Cosmos, and talk about what went on at Comic-Con. It won't be as monumental as our Comic-Con shows of the past, where we're talking about, oh, this is the lineup coming from Marvel, this is what's going to happen for DC, etc., etc. But it should still be a lot of fun talking about Comic-Con, and I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely looking forward to it indeed. But what are your thoughts out there on San Diego Comic-Con? Are you attending this weekend, or are you really excited to still hear a lot of stuff going on that's emanating from San Diego, a place I enjoy, have been to many times, I absolutely love? I guess I'm going to try and go again next year, whether or not registration lets me in, whether or not registration at Comic-Con actually answers my emails. That remains to be seen. But what are your thoughts out there on San Diego Comic-Con this weekend? Are you sad because there's going to be some light attendance from the actors because of what's going on with the strike? Let us know your thoughts if you're still going to enjoy San Diego Comic-Con 2023, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. You killed it as always. But before you give us the usual pitch for Vampires and Vitae and how you suck the life out of your own husband right there on the screen on Vampires and Vitae on YouTube, I just, he's such a good sport.
He is.
But But I told you the other day I was very disturbed again by Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Not this
Yeah.
latest episode that aired, just that was, that aired today. I haven't checked that out yet, but the
Right.
last episode dealt with Spock, some issues in regards him accidentally being turned human, full human. He's half human, but
Hmm.
full human. Caused problems as far as a engagement party for the in-laws, and that did not go well. And in the meantime, his fiance broke up with him. But Nurse Chapel, who in the original series, if you go way back when, had a nice flirtation with Spock, had a nice affection for Spock.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if it was always reciprocated, and how, when I saw it, it was like, Spock is so emotionless, expressiveness on screen that you can't tell if he was really doing the same thing in kind, as far as having those same kind of feelings in kind. Especially the fact they did play out the fiance and the home world of Vulcan and all that on the original series. They've now changed that timeline,
Hmm.
as well as changing the con timeline. What, the week before that?
Yeah.
So, as my therapist, my Star Trek therapist, I'm trying to gather in all the Star Trek knowledge that I've had over the years and wondering, are they just truly intending to go ahead and blow up the timeline? What's next? Is Pike's future that he had already envisioned and seen, which we've already seen in the original series, is that next to be blown up and smashed to bits?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Are they really going to kill off Captain Pike when it comes time? I mean,
Because
that's
he's envisioned it, as far as
yeah.
him getting the debilitating injury and a training accident, yada
Hmm.
yada yada. He's already foreseen this,
Yeah.
and this is the type of thing that you saw in the original series, that he actually gets this debilitating accident. Now, because he's seen it, are they going to change it? For the prospect of just being able to get more seasons out of the series.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's almost easier to look at Star Trek and think of Star Trek as a different universe for each series. So, the next generation, yes, we have familiar names and familiar aliens and familiar, other things happening. But I think that if you just start to take them and kind of put each one in its own little bubble and put it over here, and then we can put Strange New Worlds, we could put that over here. I think that timeline stuff and the established lore stuff might become a little less important.
But
I'm
Chapel and Spock, there's more than a flirt. Let's just say there's more than a flirtation now. It's full on
Yeah, I
romantic
honestly, I have no problems
interlude.
with this. Yeah, I have no problems with this. I really don't. I think that there should be an understanding as a fan of any show that goes back and tries to tell the stories and expand on storylines. It's
Oh, they're
all there's
expanding, all right.
Yeah, there's always going to be some kind of conflict that happens with what came before. And I think that they've done a pretty good job of, so far anyway, of honoring the things that have come before, but building on the things that they are the stories that they are trying to tell. So I don't have a problem with Spock and Nurse Chapel. I think that's fine. Go ahead, do it. I do think that there's amazing chemistry between those two characters. I really do.
Oh, they're doing it all right.
Yeah.
But before before we, thank you so much again. You're my Star Trek therapist. I'll make sure I send the bill to you.
Yeah.
I truly appreciate it. But before we head on, just the way you phrase that, it's like, yeah, they are. But
I just
before,
meant go ahead with the flirtation and all of that stuff.
oh, it's beyond the flirtation now. If you watch
Yeah.
the last episode, that's
Yeah.
all I'll say about that. But
Yeah.
before we head it out, please go ahead and give us an update on what's going on with you and your husband and the fantastic crew known as Vampires of Vitae.
Yeah, so last week, I mean, we had the mystery that we have delved a little deeper into as to not only who committed the murder on the train, but now also who it was that was truly murdered, because who we thought it was actually a decoy. So we're kind of getting to the bottom of that. We're trying to figure out who the assassin was. We're seeing some really interesting stuff from different properties in the world of darkness come into play. We've got some Mage the Awakening happening in there. We have werewolves that have been popping up already this season, and we're only 5 episodes in. So if you would like to, our next episode will drop tomorrow, and that's going to talk about, what we did last week in the live stream on Sunday. This weekend, it's going to be more investigating, and I'm sure more shenanigans from Barnaby and Rusty. That's almost a guarantee. Yeah.
If you've seen it how I seen it when I watch your show, yes, shenanigans is probably the nicest way of saying of what's going on with Vampires of Vitae. But I will tell you what, it's been a great ride so far. Season 3, please go ahead and check it out today, not only on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but also subscribe today to the YouTube channel to get the latest notifications on when the next Vampires of Vitae hits for you. Any last thoughts on Wizards and Wine before we head on out?
Yeah. So Wizards and Wine, we have a few episodes now in the can. So we're going to start looking at getting things scheduled and getting episodes dropping on a regular basis. And I'm still working away on 2 of the homebrew campaigns that we're going to get into for the next season. We are probably, I'm going to say, because we play both tables kind of bi-weekly, I'm going to say about 3 to 4 months out from wrapping up the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. We're in Yon, we're inside of Motherhorn. The Halifax table has discovered a source of power for all of Motherhorn, and the Vegas table is kind of right on their heels. So we'll see how that goes. There is going to be a showdown with a coven of hags versus both tables working together. That's the plan. So hopefully it'll work that way.
A coven of hags.
Yeah.
All right. Couldn't have said
Hags
it better
are my
myself.
favorite D&D monster. They are my favorite.
Wow. There's a joke in there somewhere. I just won't say where.
Hey, birds of a feather.
Birds of a feather indeed. So for Melinda Barkhouse Ross, this is Gerald Glassford. It's a beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great